Everyone, I'm Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I get the opportunity to play with the new EOS beads here that are from France. The design is France, and the beads are manufactured in the Czech Republic. And if you haven't gotten a hand on them yet, they are a two-hole bar shaped, and they're a little bit different from the regular bar or the brick if you're familiar with the actual checkmate bar or brick. They indent a little bit, and they're actually manufactured and designed by the same producer of the Arcos and the Minos bead, and they're used primarily with those beads in order to kind of complement them. For the design here, which we're going to call Lombard Street, it reminds me of kind of that back and forth zigzagging curve like the street in San Francisco. So for that, we're going to be using two different colors of our EOS beads. The EOS beads, if you need any of these materials, on the left-hand side here, we'll do a little drop-down menu that links to the different beads that you can purchase online. If you're on a mobile or anything, you may not get those little drop-downs. Underneath the video here, there's always a little description that says what the video is about. And if you hit the little show more button, the down arrows, that'll give you links to purchase all of these products as well. So you can either make your own list, do that list off of the actual description, or you can press on the pop-ups here on the sides. For the colors that I will be using in the design, we're using the white Lila Vega luster color here, which is a nice pretty light purple, and then the really dark purple, the metallic matte dark violet. Those two colors will complement each other. I'll be using the white Lila Vega down the center where I have the Aztec in the example, and then along the sides where I have that white mint luster or that white light green, I'm going to be using that matte dark or the metallic dark violet color for those two. Down the center of the bracelet, making that zigzag, are some 15-0s and some Potomac crystals. There's a lot of different options that you can use to do the zigzag, so keep that in mind. You don't necessarily need these same exact materials in order to do the project. So if you have some other things at home, feel free to try those out as well. I'm going to be using the 15-0s here in the black hematite color, which is a check coating on the Miyuki seed bead. So it's produced in Japan by Miyuki and then shipped to the Czech Republic to be coated. And it's that black hematite color, so it's going to be really dark. To complement that dark color and to kind of make it still look twisted and winding, I have 2x3mm Potomac crystal rondelles, and these are the half pewter coating. So I have that nice kind of sparkle and shine, which will add to the 15-0s as they run and zigzag down the center of my road. On the sides of the example here, in addition to those emerald crystals down the middle, I also put the emerald crystals down the sides. What I'm going to be doing instead to really kind of highlight that zigzag down the middle is pop in some 11-0s on the sides and use just 11-0s so my concentration really stays towards the middle and that zigzagging like Lombard Street down the middle of the bracelet. To completely close off the bracelet and to clasp it, I'm using a cup button. And this is the Lila Vega luster cup button, which goes along with the Lila Vega beads. So they're a nice mix there. And then also 0.006 wildfire beading thread. I've chosen the green colors to really kind of blend in and match to my bead. And we are going to be using one needle for this project. So I know a lot of you don't like the 2-needle projects, so this one needle is for you. And you are going to be using a size 10 or a size 12 needle. If you prefer a stiffer needle, the size 10 will be fine for this because we're only going back through those 15-0s one time, so you're fine with a 10. You can also have handy a cord cutter or a thread burner to burn the ends of your thread. And then to make it easier to thread your needle, you want a needle nose pliers in order to kind of bend down and to flatten out the end of that thread. If you do like to actually glue your bracelets, you can use some E6000 glue, or I usually just use super new glue. So some people like the E6000. I only use that if I'm bonding two things together. With the threads, I use the super new glue because that's going to hold up really well on your thread. Also, you'll be able to kind of create your knot with the wildfire or with the threads up, any of those cord colors or thread burners. You also want a nice workable surface. I just have the bead on it board fabric right here. I use my bead on it board as I make things and kind of be able to move them around and have them transportable. To get started, we are using a basic peyote stitch. We're doing 2-hold peyote, and instead of going with the width of the bracelet, we're going to be going the length of the bracelet. So to start out, you're going to be using your 2 EOS beads. So go ahead and do a pile of each of those EOS beads. You can leave your seed beads sit off to the side for now. And we are going to have about 5 feet of thread on our needle. So to get started with the design, again, like I said, it's regular peyote stitch. So if you look along the back here, along our little road, you can see that it is going to be 3 wide, basically, of the peyote stitch. To start out the peyote stitch, it's going to start out with every other color. I have on my 5 feet of thread a stop bead. This is just an 11-0 seed bead that I had on my mat that I've taken back through my mat, or back through my thread 2 times, leaving about a 2-inch tail. I don't need a really long tail because I'm going to be going up the project and back the project. While we're doing that, that's when I'll go ahead and add my cut button. To start, we're going to be using our light purple on the interior and our dark purple on the exterior. So the dark purple is going to be the one creating the zigzag, or there on the sides. You could also do this bracelet wider if you want to. On my wrist here, you can see the width on the wrist. If you want to do it wider, you're more than welcome to. You're just going to do basically the number of rows. Here I have 3. You're going to want to keep it even if you do want to get the zigzagging effect. To start out, we're going to add one of our dark violets and then the Lila Vega. Dark violet, Lila Vega. So literally just every other of our EOS that we're adding are different colors. Normally when you do a peyote stitch, you're going to do it so that you're going the length of the bracelet is what you're building on. We're going to be building on the width, so we're going longwise. So you're going to need approximately 6.5 to 7 inches, depending on the length of your wrist, of this pattern going every other bead with your EOS and in the violet and that Lila luster. For my wrist, which is about 6.25, I usually like my bracelets about 6 3/4. I'm going to do about 6.5 inches or a little bit less, doing this same pattern of every other bead, doing the different colors. Once you have the length of your wrist here in your ESO beads, you're going to get ready to actually go in now and start your peyote stitch. So normally, again, you're going to have the beads be lengthwise or widthwise, and then you're going to add the length. We are doing lengthwise. So I have here my 6.25 inches of my ESO beads. To start out the design, basically we're going to be doing peyote that's for 2-hold beads. To do that, the beads that are in that metallic dark violet color are going to sit down, while the beads that are in the Lila color, that Lila Vega, are going to sit up. We're going to only be adding beads in the Lila Vega for the middle 2 rows, and then we're going to go ahead in and or the middle row rather, and then we'll go ahead in and actually add another row of our darker beads. To start it, for this whole entire row, when you're coming out of your last bead, which I have as my dark metallic, I pick up one of my bead in the white Lila Vega luster. I'm going to skip over that first bead and sew with my needle, going back towards the stop bead through the next Lila Vega bead. I want to, as much as possible, get a nice tight pull on this and kind of force that dark violet bead to sit down and give a nice tight pull so it's starting to create that bricking effect. After adding that bead, I'm going to add another, skip over that next dark violet, and go into the empty hole of the next Lila Vega. Pull nice and tight, making sure again that it's cooperating and that that's sitting side by side. So this whole row, we're going to add the Lila Vega and pick up the empty hole of the Lila Vega in the next bead. That bead that you have in the dark violet should always have the empty hole kind of sticking off to the side. So that's never going to actually be, we're never going to be going into that one to start. That's how we're going to get that zigzagging effect that will come back and actually go into this. So now you're going to continue the whole bracelet, just adding in that Lila Vega, adding one bead, it doesn't matter which hole, to the bead since it's the same, and then going in to that second hole of the first Lila bead that you put on. So you're going to continue this the whole length of the bracelet. In my case, that 6 1/4 inch wrist bracelet, so that way I'll have a little bit extra at the end that I can put my clasp on. So you're literally just continuing that same peyote stitch, doing that 2-hole peyote the whole length of the bracelet. As you get to the end of this second row here, you can see that you have that kind of zigzagging formation already going on. It's easy to do peyote with 2-hole beads because you can really see exactly which beads are in what place. So actually, if you haven't done peyote before, this is a good kind of starting peyote project. So as I'm building the beads here, I'm getting to the end, and I'm at the last space here where I'm going to put my last of my purple beads. And what I'm going to do is immediately turn back through that same purple bead. My thread originally is coming out next to my stop bead here. I'm going to turn around and take the thread back the opposite direction, going towards the end of the project. Give a nice tight pull. You can see sometimes that will curve the bracelet a little bit. So when I pulled it, it curved the bracelet. That's the challenge with doing peyote lengthwise. We have a stop bead on here, so we're actually going to have the opportunity to kind of tighten up that thread end to make it sit nice and straight rather than having it bowed and curled. As I come back through and do my next bead here, we're going to go in and do another row of your actual center. In this case here, it was a row of that gold bead. I'm going to do another row of my purple, that Lila Vega luster. So to do the second row, it's the exact same as the first. All I'm doing is picking up a bead, going back away from the stop bead, and going through that second hole of the Lila Vega bead that's already there. So you're going to continue your brick road here, right up to the top. This is going to be your third pass of your beads. And then we're going to do a fourth coming down the end. And that fourth pass is when we'll actually add in that dark violet again. So go ahead and just continue up with that peyote stitch, adding it in and adding your next row here of beads right along the top, right from the base to the top. You may say, oh, your button's here, you haven't added your button yet. We're going to add the button as we're actually doing the embellishment, so we're not going to really worry about the button thus far, or the loop, or if you have regular clasp and want to do some wire protectors. Don't worry about that so far, just worry about doing your peyote stitch. So as I finish up my row here, you can see how many of the EOS I have left. So I would have enough left for about another 1/2 inch or so. So if you do have a wider wrist, you may want to go ahead and get 2 tubes of whatever your middle color is going to be. As I continue now, I'm going to put all of those beads kind of to the side a little bit, and you can even put them back in your container if you have some left. And then I'm going to concentrate on just using my metallic dark violet, that matted violet color. And we're going to go down the bracelet doing the exact same thing as we've been doing our peyote stitch. When I get to the end here, I'm coming out my last bead, and I'm going to reverse the thread after putting on one of the dark violets and start going back down the end. So your pattern should mirror itself, that it's going to be those 2 darker beads, then there's kind of 4 middle, 2 darker, 4 middle. And that's going to continue down the whole bracelet. Like I said, if you want to, you could do it wider. That's kind of up to you. And you can see I have a little bit of lax thread there. I'm not worrying about it. I don't necessarily even want the thread pulled super tight because I do want the beads to be allowed at the ends here to flip up, because we're going to be flipping those metallic dark violet up on their sides. So go ahead and continue down the end here, doing your peyote stitch, and adding in your last row and your last grouping here of those EOS beads. At the end of the bracelet, as I add in the last of my EOS bead there, I have the last of that dark violet, and you can see the nice kind of strip of peyote that was created. And I have the EOS sitting there in that, that dark metallic. Clean up the rest of them here. You can see I have plenty of left for those side beads because you don't use that many. So the side beads, you're going to be fine with 1 tube. Like I said, if you have a larger wrist, go ahead and get 2 tubes of the center. When I'm coming out the end here, I'm going to get ready to add some of my 15-0s as well as my crystals. We're going to come down the center of the bracelet, and then we are going to go back up the bracelet on the actual sides of the piece. Kind of just make a pile here of all of my goodie beads that I'm going to be using. When I'm coming out the end, go ahead and put on 3 of your 15-0 seed beads. Just like as if I was getting ready to do my next set of peyote, I'm going to switch the thread back towards the actual, switching the thread back towards the actual piece. So I have all my 3 beads, and I'm going to reverse the thread going through that same EOS bead. You can see that little 3 is there on the side. What we're going to do now is create that Lombard street effect. To do so, add 3 15s, 1 of your 2x3 rondelles, and then 3 15s. Scoot over to the left-hand side, going diagonal, so we're going down a row, and go through the second hole of that dark metallic, that violet color with those 15-0s. You're going to see those EOS kind of sit up on an angle. Next, add 3 more 15s, crystal, 3 15s. Once you have those on, skip over towards the right-hand side now, going through the EOS on a diagonal. Kind of make those sit up, pulling those nice and tight. Again, continuing on, 3 15s and a crystal, 3 15s. Mine kind of exploded out the end there, so I'm kind of gathering them from around my bead mat. Go then into the next zigzagged EOS and come down away from the stop bead and kind of click that bead up so that it sits up. So you can see that zigzag effect starting to happen, getting that kind of Lombard street effect that we want. As you're doing that, you're going to notice that there's 2 little bricks that stick out on opposite ends already, actually 3 if you count the first one, that they're going to be also on a diagonal. That's where we're going to come back, and whether or not you want to grab crystals or you want to stick with the 11-0s like I'll be doing, you can do that. But all you're going to continue with is 15s and the crystal in the middle, and then catching on and sewing your needle down away from the stop bead through the opposite diagonal EOS and creating that nice zigzag effect that's happening. So I've come down the bracelet now doing the center here. And you can see the crystals kind of popping out there in the center of the project. And we come to the end, and you should be ending on opposite corners here when you're working with it. When I end the beads, here's where I'm going to actually be putting on my clasp. I'll have the opportunity with this first side to kind of reinforce that clasp. To go ahead and put on the button, I'm going to be using my 15-0s and put on 4 of my 15-0s, coming out the exterior kind of corner there. Put on 1 of my crystals, which I'm done using. I'm going to put on 3 of my 15-0s, go up through my cup button. If you're using a clasp, here would be where you put the clasp on as well. You could do a wire protector and then your clasp on, kind of that's up to you. 15-0, crystal, and then 15-0, or if you want, you could put 4 15-0s, and come down the other side of the cup button. When I'm out the other side of the cup button, I'm going to add 3 more of my 15s, go through that crystal And that's going to create a little bit there of a Y formation. And I'm coming out the crystal, add 4 more 15s. You're going to go to the opposite side through that EOS that's hanging out there on the side. And that's going to put our button right there on the end. Now coming down the side of the EOS, I'm going to add in my 11-0 seed beads. Along the side here, what I did to kind of get that wavy effect was I added 3, just like I did along the top, 3 15s and then a crystal between each of my EOS beads. Because I want to keep that road really to be the center and the focus of it, I'm going to go ahead and just use some 11-0s here in place of this. Another cute idea is to use some teardrops off to the side here between. To start out the design, we're basically just filling in the gap with our 11-0 seed beads. And my 11-0 seed beads here in that galvanized silver, you're going to put on 7 seed beads. Take your needle and thread and go up connecting to the next of, 6 seed beads. Getting a little ahead of myself. 6 seed beads and go through the next of your EOS bead right along the side. Again, 6 11s go on to the needle, up through the next EOS bead. So you can see they just kind of frame out the street there. Continue on adding your 6 11s. Remember, if you're doing the crystals, you're going to add 3 15s and then a crystal in the middle, just like you did right along the center. You can see if you add more than enough, you get a little puffed out if you can't count. Take one off here. And then continue up. So go ahead and continue up the whole line, adding in your 6 11-0s on the left-hand side here. We'll add our loop for our clasp on the right and then come back down the other side. Once you come down the side then, adding in those 11-0 seed beads, you get to the end and we're going to go ahead and add 3 more of our 11-0s. We're going to go through that bottom hole of the last of our EOS. And this then brings you back to the end with the stop bead. Once we're there, we're going to go ahead and do a loop for our button. What I like to do for the loop for the button is do it in the same fashion that I bring the beads together. So if you have your crystals still out, you're going to go ahead and add 4 of your 15s, then 1 of your crystals. And if you have a strand of crystals, you'll still have plenty left. And then you can choose to do either 15s or 11s as your loop. It's up to you. I'm going to use the 15s so the loop is nice and small and not the focus of the project. This also gives you a nice opportunity to kind of clean up your bead mat of 15s. And for you that do purchase beads from us or beads that come in tubes, I usually take the beads out of the tubes by the cap full, and that's how I know kind of how many I have on. And kind of go around the bead mat here, picking up all the little loose 15s. I'm going to need to add a couple more onto my needle. So I use my bead cap as my pour. Get a couple more on there. And once I have enough that it's going to go through the loop, or that if you have a clasp on, that you're using a magnet, a toggle, kind of up to you, you'd go ahead and put that on right now as well. Go down through the bead at the end here. Push that all down next to your project. 4 15s go on. And usually we're going to the exterior hole to come back down the side. For this one, I'm actually going to go to the interior hole and through that last bead. Oops. Trying not to get it all twisted up. Pull that tight. You have your stopping thread there. You're going to kind of push that out of the way. Give a nice tight pull. Then what I'm going to actually do is turn the project to the back. I want to snake the actual thread here from the top, from the bottom hole to the top hole of that same, or I'm sorry, from the bottom hole there to the top hole of the next bead over, that Lila Vega. If you want to, you can put 2 little beads here to decorate, or 3 little beads. I'll go ahead and put 3 on. Go down that second hole of that same bead, because what we're trying to do is we're going to reinforce the loop. So I have 3 beads on there. Go back through that bottom hole. So remember, I'm at the baseline of the next metallic colored bead there. And then I'm simply going to go up through and reinforce my entire loop. So I'm going to go back through all 4 of my 15-0 seed beads, through my crystal, back up through the whole loop, and reinforce. When I come down the other side, then that's going to give me an opportunity to tie off and get rid of my starter thread. And then we'll come down the bracelet, simply adding in the 11 O's on the opposite side. So it's a really easy technique-based bracelet, but it's a great one that if you haven't done peyote with 2 holes, this is a good start. Along the side, then I'm going to go through those 4 beads here on the exterior, take my stop bead off, sometimes it's easier said than done. And once I take that stop bead off, I'm going to go ahead and tie those 2 thread ends together. So I'm tying those 2 ends together, and that's going to give me an opportunity to end that actual starter thread. Down the opposite side now, what I get to do is add my 11s in, just like I did on the right side here. I'm going to flip over and move the right side to the left. Add in my 3 15s, and then continue down the left-hand side after going and progressing from the first hole to the second hole. Go ahead and add your 6 11s. And once those 6 11s are on, your needle here, go ahead and lay some more out. You get to go the whole way down the edge of the bracelet. So now we're just continuing right down to the end. When at the end, we'll do 3 beads, but to start and to continue down the edge, you're going to do 6. So you've got your 4, 5, and 6, and then go through your next metallic dark violet. 6 more 11s go on, down through the next metallic dark violet. So it's very simple, up and back, and continuing on. When I'm at the end here for the last bead, just like we did on the other side, you're going to not add 6, but add 3, and go through the bottom hole of that last EOS bead. When I'm through the bottom hole, add in 3 of your 15s, and then jump over to the 15 O's that are already there. And this is your opportunity to reinforce your clasp. So I'm going through then, adding my thread and needle back through the clasp, going through all the beads through the clasp, coming back down the clasp then on the other side. And finally then I will get to knot off or tie off my thread. To tie off my thread when I'm doing a single needle project, I generally will take the thread back along the side and go under what's called a bridge thread, which is a thread connecting 2 beads, make a loop, and then sew through that loop, doing a little sewer's knot. And I do this multiple places in the bracelet. So there's one. I'll take it down the line here, go down and reinforce some of those seed beads along the side. It wants to cooperate and let me. I'll go down through those, pop one out somewhere, grab between those 2 threads, make a loop, sew through that loop with my needle, and tie a knot. If you want to, you can even kind of scoop back into the middle of the project and go back into the actual centerpiece. When I do that, if I'm going back into one of the centers, I usually am going to flip the project over. So that way when I tie the knot, it's going to be on the bottom side. So you can go into that warp thread right there, or that bridge thread, make the loop. My thread's getting short. So through that loop and tie off. So I've done this now 3 places, and the bracelet is now complete. If you want to, you can go back into where those thread ends are, do a tiny dab of glue, and just a tiny, tiny little dab will do it. And kind of took it up, and I usually blow the glue into the thread area. Do it on this side as well. Pull it up off your mat so that way when you are drying it, it doesn't stick to the mat. I'd rather it stick to my hands than to the mat. Once you have that glued, then we'll just go ahead with our thread burner and actually burn down the thread ends. Once you burn off your thread ends and your glue is dried, your Lombard Street bracelet is going to be, or Lombard Street bracelet is going to be finished. So the cool thing is it uses those new EOS beads in a way that they're not really utilized, and they're not really necessarily designed for. You can use other beads for this too. So don't think that when you're working on it, oh, I have to be using these beads or those beads. Try it out with different things. It's going to create different spacing, and you're going to need to come up with your own pattern a little bit. But I really love to see when these videos spark people's ideas and they kind of take it to a new level. So you can see as I get all the beads kind of stuck to my hand here, the difference of the look between the seed beads on the side versus, let me darken that a little bit for you, the seed beads on the side versus the actual crystals on the side, and the different effect that you're going to get of the crystals running down the center all dark versus the crystals kind of running down the middle with that lighter phase to it. So it's a nice, fun bracelet doing the length or the lengthwise peyote rather than widthwise, which allows you to kind of do that zigzag pattern and get the design. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this Lombard Street pattern, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little drop-down menu on the left-hand side, or underneath the video to the Show More button. If you like these videos, you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch me a bunch if you want to. Get regular updates on the different things that we do, the different new products that we bring to you, like these EOS beads, as well as all the different fun ones that Puca creates, the Arcos and the Minos as well. So check those all out. Have fun creating with all of these fun different beads. And again, subscribe if you'd like to. You can also stay connected with us by visiting PotomacBeads.com. Shop with me online, or check out the different locations we have, and stop into one of our local stores and get some help from our wonderful staff at them. You can also stay connected with us yet again through our Facebook page. And then we also have a Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Beading and Jewelry Making. You can join there, and it's a great interaction between people that love to bead, love to make jewelry in all different forms and all different mediums, and it's really a pleasure to kind of interact with everybody, to see what they make, see what they design, see all the talent that's out there, and get the help and advice from some of those talented people that are on there to answer questions for new beaders, or answer different design ideas, or help with patterns, all of that on there as well. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Have fun beading and making this Lombard Street bracelet.